so we are going to look at aldehydes and ketones today in chemistry. So we're going to be doing, that's not what I wanted to do. We're going to be doing the next two types of carbohydrates. All right, so aldehydes and ketones are very similar. They're kind of a little bit easy for students sometimes to get mixed up. But the big thing with aldehyde and ketone is that they have a carbonyl group. And what that means for a carbonyl group is that you have a carbon double bonded to an oxygen. So here's the difference. Let me look down here. So this is an aldehyde. It's an aldehyde because it is it's on the end. It has no other option. Like there's a hydrogen on the end. This is an aldehyde because look, yes, this is a carbon, but you're on the end of a chain. This is not an aldehyde because you are not on the end of a chain. You are in the middle of a carbon chain. So that is called a ketone. So a ketone has carbons on each side of it. All right, so here, this is really, I'm like, okay, this is a carbonyl. Now is it on the end? Or is this carbonyl group, is it in the middle? Okay, this is going to be an aldehyde. This one will be a ketone. So that's why it's kind of easy to get them mixed up because they are so similar. When we go to name these things, we are going to see in some of the worksheets, and the book does this a lot, where instead of using meth and eth and prop and bute, they're going to use maybe form. So this is when you get formaldehyde, the stuff that they preserve, like they used to use formaldehyde to preserve the organisms for dissection, or acetaldehyde, or propion aldehyde, or butyraldehyde, or butyric acid, that kind of thing. Instead of butanaldehyde, they're going to use butyr maybe. So these are just some what they call common names. Okay, meth is still there. I can still have methylaldehyde or methanol. If you look, I can still use meth, but this is a common name. Okay, so now if you see that form, if you see the prefix form, that also means one carbon. If you see that prefix acete, that means two carbons. So if you have these written down somewhere, you may want to write that down. Out beside meth, you may want to write form. Out beside eth, you may want to write acete or propion and butyr. I feel like propion and butyr are easier because propion is very close to prop, and butyr is very close to just the B-U-T. All right? So other than that, you can see how they're ending these. These are all aldehydes, look, on the end. On the end. On the end of a chain. So they're all aldehydes, and they are all ending in AL. So you'll hear me because it's so close to like your alcohols, like methanol, OL, or methanal. I'll try to say al. Methanal is your AL, and that's an aldehyde. Right, your alcohols are just an OH. These are a double bonded oxygen on the end of a carbon chain. Okay? So your methane, instead of methane, you're taking the E and adding AL. So it's very similar to those alcohols. Instead of OL, it is now AL, but written the exact same way. All right, so some things that we use aldehydes for, benzaldehyde, that gives almonds their smells. It's a lot of smelly things like perfumes and flavorings, that kind of stuff. Vanilla, we see a lot of benzene rings in here too, but you can see an aldehyde, it is on the end. That's on the end. Even though it's on a benzene ring, it's on the end. Benzene ring, but it's on the end of that carbon chain. So cinnamon, vanilla, almonds, that's just a few. All right, so ketones then. Ketones are going to end with ONE. So instead of AL for my aldehydes, and think about that, aldehydes, AL. Now my ketones are going to end in ONE. All right, so when I look at this, this is not on the end. It's not on the end, it's in the middle, so it's a ketone. So I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, it's propanone. Now you could put 3 propanone, because you're going to have to tell me where. Here's the thing, the reason they don't put the number there is because, look, if I were to move where this double bond is, if I were to move it here, it's now an aldehyde, right? If I were to move it to the other carbon, if I were to move it this way, it's now an aldehyde. It's not a ketone anymore. So if you have propanone, that is the only location to put that double bond. So that's why there's not a 3, but you can put a 3, that's fine. Another way to name these is to say there's a methyl and a methyl, dimethylketone. That's another way. All right, now let's look at this one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, it's bute. Instead of butane, you take that E off and add an O and E, butanone. Now you have to tell me where, 1, 2, it is on 2, butanone. Or you could say, okay, there's a meth and there's an F. Ethyl methyl ketone. That is another way to name that. I tend to stick with the propanones, butanones, but you will see that on worksheets every now and then. Acetone is a very common ketone that we see. Nail polish removers, it's got that very, like, you know the scent. I feel like you know the smell as soon as I say it. But that is a ketone. All right, so the learning check, classify, we just want to know, is an aldehyde a ketone or none of the above? So here, right away, I'm like, okay, there's nothing else special, just this double bonded oxygen. It is in the middle. So this is a ketone. There's this. Now I'm looking to make sure there's nothing else going on. Yeah, there's some branches, that's fine. But this is an aldehyde because it is on the end. This right here does not have a double bonded oxygen, so it is neither. And look, that is an alcohol, so neither. Let's see, there we go. All right, so now we're going to name. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to figure out which one is this. Well, I'm looking right here, and I have to ask myself, is it on the end? If it is, it's an aldehyde. If it's not, it's a ketone. Well, this one is, so it is an aldehyde, so I'm going to end it in Al. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is pent. Instead of pentane, I'm going to get rid of that E and put pentanol, or pentanal. You do not have to put a number. It's always on the end. It's always coming off of carbon 1. I guess that's maybe a better way to say it. An aldehyde is always coming off of carbon 1. So that is pentanal. Now let's look at this one. 1, 2, 3. Do not let, this one's tricky. Do not count that as a fourth one. That is chlorine. So 1, 2, 3, that is going to be prop. And it is coming off of carbon 1, so propanal. Now I've got to name this chlorine here. And that is 1, 2, 3, 3-chloro, propanal. Remember, anytime we see these special groups, that becomes our carbon 1. We count closest to that. All right, now this one, look at this. It's not on the end. It's not on carbon 1, so it is a ketone. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's going to be bute. And instead of the E, I'm going to be O-N-E, butanone. It's carbon 1, 2, it's 2-butanone. Now you could also name this ethyl methyl ketone. That is another thing, another name that you could name it. All right. Now we're going to draw the structures. So as soon as I see them, I always go straight down here to the end to see. First off, there's 5 carbons, and what am I drawing? I'm going to draw that double bonded oxygen. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Al tells me it is a ketone, or an aldehyde, sorry, an aldehyde. Now I could have drawn this. I could have put it there. That is completely okay. Remember, this is in 3D space. I could pick this up and flip it and reverse it. But I'm going to leave it like this. So there's my pentanol. Now, on carbon 4, I have a methyl group. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to put it up because I'm running out of room. But there's my methyl. Methyl meaning 1 carbon. All right. On B, I have propanal. So that is going to be prop is 3. The Al tells me it's an aldehyde. And then dichloro. That means I have a chlorine coming off of 2 and 3. So 1, 2, so Cl and a Cl. Now I can do my I've not been doing my hydrogen, but there we go. Okay, so remember dichloro, it does not mean that you have 2 chlorines, okay? It means that you have 1, 2. All right, now on C, I've got butanone. So as soon as I see bute, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this tells me it is a ketone, and that double bond is coming off of carbon 2. Now on carbon 3, I have a methyl, so 1, 2, 3. There's a CH3. Right, and that's how you would draw those. And that's it for the aldehydes and ketones. We'll do some practice with it because I know that it seems like we go through that kind of quickly, but we'll practice a lot and make sure that you guys are good with that, seeing all the different ways, because these have multiple different ways you can write them. We saw where ketones have 2 different types of names. We now saw where you can get form or acete as some of your prefixes. So we'll make sure that you guys are good before we move on with these. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and have a great rest of your day.